Alex was 41 when he started forgetting simple things. He would walk into a room and completely blank on why he was there. In meetings, he would lose his train of thought mid-sentence and have to ask people to repeat themselves. At night, he would lie in bed for hours with his mind racing through unfinished tasks, even though his body felt completely drained. His doctor told him his cortisol levels were chronically elevated and that he was showing clear signs of burnout. Alex wasn't surprised. He had been running on adrenaline for almost a decade. He tried the usual fixes. He downloaded meditation apps and used them for 3 days before forgetting about them. He bought an expensive sunrise alarm clock. He even tried quitting coffee for 2 weeks. Nothing moved the needle in any meaningful way. He still woke up tired, and he still went to bed with his mind buzzing. One Sunday morning, after another terrible night of sleep, Alex did something he hadn't done since he was a child. He drove to a nearby forest reserve, took off his shoes, and walked barefoot on the grass for 20 minutes. He didn't listen to a podcast. He didn't check his phone. He just walked slowly and occasionally stopped to feel the ground under his feet. He felt ridiculous at first, a grown man walking barefoot in a park like some kind of hippie. But by the time he got back to his car, something subtle had shifted. His shoulders felt slightly looser. His mind felt quieter than it had in months. He didn't know why, and he didn't trust it would last, but for the first time in a long while, he felt a small flicker of relief. He went back the next day, and the day after that. At first, the changes were small and easy to dismiss. He noticed he was falling asleep a little faster. His mind wasn't racing quite as aggressively when he lay down at night. After about 3 weeks, something more noticeable happened. He realized he had gone an entire afternoon without checking his phone out of anxiety. That had become so rare that he actually paused and registered it. By week 6, his wife commented that he seemed more present during conversations. He wasn't constantly half listening while thinking about work. His focus during the day had improved enough that his colleagues started noticing. And perhaps most surprisingly, the constant low-grade sense of dread he had carried for years had started to lift. What Alex didn't realize at the time was that he was doing 2 things that science has increasingly shown to have powerful effects on the human nervous system. The first was spending time in nature. Research on forest bathing, originally studied extensively in Japan, has found that time in forests can significantly lower cortisol levels, the primary stress hormone. Multiple studies have shown that people who spend time walking in forests experience measurable drops in cortisol, lower blood pressure, and improved mood compared to those in urban environments. Trees also release natural compounds called phytocides, which have been linked to boosted immune function, including increased activity of natural killer cells. The second thing Alex was doing, walking barefoot, touches on a more controversial but increasingly studied area called grounding or earthing. Some research suggests that direct physical contact with the earth may help reduce inflammation and support better regulation of cortisol. While the science is still emerging and not yet conclusive, several studies have reported improvements in sleep quality, reduced pain, and lower stress markers in people who practiced grounding. But perhaps the most important shift happening for Alex wasn't just biological, it was neurological.
Modern life constantly demands what researchers call directed attention, the focused, effortful kind of focus we use for work, problem-solving, and decision-making. This system gets depleted over time, which is why so many people feel mentally exhausted even when they haven't done much physical work. Nature, on the other hand, engages what's known as involuntary attention. When we're in a natural environment, our attention is gently held by things like the movement of leaves, the sound of birds, or the feeling of wind. This gives the brain's directed attention system a chance to rest and recover. Alex had been running his directed attention system into the ground for years. By going into nature with no goal other than being there, he was finally giving that system regular opportunities to recharge. Around the 3-month mark, something deeper changed. Alex stopped seeing his time in nature as an escape from his real life. Instead, it became part of how he lived his real life. The 25 minutes he spent in the park each morning didn't just lower his stress in the moment, it changed the baseline from which he operated for the rest of the day. He became slightly more patient with his children. He became better at catching himself when he was spiraling into worst-case thinking. He started saying no to things that would have previously triggered his anxiety about missing out or falling behind. The most surprising part wasn't how much better he felt, it was how much more like himself he had become. He realized he had spent years slowly becoming a version of himself that was constantly anxious, reactive, and disconnected, not because that was who he truly was, but because that was who his nervous system had adapted to be under constant pressure. By regularly stepping out of that pressure and into nature, he had given his system a chance to remember a different way of being. He still had deadlines, he still had challenges at work and at home, but he was no longer carrying the same constant internal pressure that had defined his life for so long. His nervous system had finally been given permission to regularly come out of survival mode. Alex often tells people that the biggest lesson he learned wasn't about nature itself, it was about attention and recovery. He had spent years believing that if he just pushed harder, planned better, or optimized more, he would eventually feel okay. What he discovered instead was that his brain and body needed something much older and simpler than any productivity system could offer. They needed regular contact with something that wasn't trying to get anything from them. He didn't need to escape his life, he just needed to regularly return to something older, slower, and wiser than the world he had built around himself. Long enough and consistently enough for his nervous system to remember how to feel safe again. And maybe that's the real lesson here. If this story resonated with you, like the video and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. What's one small way you've found to reconnect with nature or create space in your own life? Thank you for watching. Take care of yourself.